Ja, ich fand nach Atemberg. Vorher.
9 a.m. in London, 4 in the morning at the Olympic Training Center in Lake Placid, and 2 in the morning at Canada Olympic Park in Calgary. 10 a.m. here in Königssee, Berchtesgaden, Germany, as the two-man bobsledders get set to take to the hill. Welcome to the Wiesmann World Cup stop number 7, two-man bobsledding. Hi, everyone. I'm Tim Singer. We've got a big day in store for you. Andre Lange will kick things off with two-man bobsledding. Certainly, he is leading the headline of the favorites as the tour moves to Germany. Lange also leading the World Cup standings. He'll have Kevin Kuska behind him on brakes tonight. And it's actually morning, even here in Germany. Simon Bertazzo just keeps getting better every year. He has one victory this season in Cesana Pariol on his home track and is in second place in the standings. Now, always doing well here on this track is Pierre Lueders, the most decorated athlete in the field, the veteran from Canada with Lascelles Brown on the brakes. Medals here in Königssee virtually every year. Ivo Rueg will be the first sled off the hill to start things off. The former four-man specialist has had a great year as well in two-man bobsleigh. And Steve Holcomb, still up there in the standings, but probably not up there among those who are being picked to win medals today, as Holcomb's results have been slipping since the tour moved to Italy. The American will hope to turn things around here on the short, windy track in Königssee. So the crowd making its way in. A little later on today, we've got the men's skeleton competition, but bobsledding always very near and dear to the hearts of these German fans. What they're going for? The Crystal, the Wiesmann World Cup trophy presented by Joska. And as for the standings, you saw a little preview in our favorites section. Lange leading the way, then Bertazzo. Lueders is in third place. And those are the three who figure to do battle towards the end. But it's still tight. Anyone over 1,000 points within reach of the title. There is one more race on the World Cup. That's next weekend in Winterberg, Germany, up in the Sauerland, northern Germany. And the trophy will be awarded at the end of that race prior to the World Championship. So the fans have made their way here. Always a festive atmosphere, rain, snow, or shine in Bavaria when the bobsleds come to town. Now about this course in Königssee, one of the shorter courses. Certainly the finish times will be some 15 seconds faster than last week on the natural ice track in St. Moritz, Switzerland. You see the average grade, some challenges up near the top. Lange has the start record that was set 3 years ago with Kevin Kuska, who will be with Lange today. These S-curves, they need to be negotiated perfectly. And we saw a lot of the women's bobsleds yesterday skidding right here in the straightaway as they make their way down towards Kelfstein and the Jena curve and, of course, the Kreisel. 360-degree turns, shooting the sled down to a very fast lower portion of the track, a labyrinth series, a big winding curve, one last finish curve, and then an uphill straightaway for several meters to the finish. The track record set by the powerful duo of Langen and Zimmerman only 3 years ago. They had set several track records throughout their career in World Cup bobsleigh. Start list, Rueg leading things off. All of the top sleds will be among the first 10 you see. Luders and Brown have the number 10 position. It will be interesting as the first heat unfolds to see if the track, due to the snow and the rather warm conditions, slows down. We had just the reverse the last 2 weeks in Cesana and in San Moritz. The Germans inspecting things up near the top. All of the sleds are getting ready. And here comes our opening competitors. Ivo Rueg, Roman Hanshin. Rueg finished 14th last year in this World Cup event in Königssee. It was the last race of the season. Very warm, as you see. It rained earlier this morning. It's raining still in the lower elevations down near the lake at the bottom, but snow at the top. No windshields on those face shields. As you see, it's been a steady year for Rueg, including that bronze medal in Cortina. Much improved this year in two-man as the Swiss pilot becomes more of the complete competitor. So 481, the push record. We probably will not see that to start things off, not even close. A quarter of a second slower, 5:08. So you see the snow falling. After every 5 sleds, there will be a little track hold as they sweep the ice. And we saw all sorts of trouble right here by some of the sleds yesterday. Rueg obviously much cleaner at this point. World Cup bobsleigh is staged in 2 heats, 2 runs. They will follow up heat number 1 about a half hour later with the second run, and it's a total cumulative time situation. So they'll have a finish time down here at the bottom, then they will add to that in the second heat. Rueg Hanshin, Swiss one across with a 50.38. And frankly, as you see the reaction by the coach, no one knows yet what to make of a 50.38 as the first sled down. Generally, it's favorable conditions for start number 1. But we'll have to see with obviously one of the powerful teams coming up next. Lange's ranked first in the World Cup standings. It's not unusual for him to be first in the World Cup standings at the end of the season, but usually he does his surging late, sometimes taking off an event or 2. But Lange has had perfect attendance this year and had near perfect results with 2 victories and 3 second places in the 6 events. Kevin Kuska on the brakes, the Olympic champion. They own the start record of 4.81. The Russians and Canadians should also be fast at the start, a 4.91 here. Now the tour moves to Germany for the final 3 stops here in Königssee, then Winterberg, and then at Altenburg for the World Championships. And it's that Altenburg track where Lange is no question the favorite, a track he grew up on. Through the Kreisel. 3/10 up already on Rueg. Lange and Kuska looking to put the pressure on all of the remaining 27 sleds to follow. And they come through with a finish time of 50.14. So no one will touch a track record today. That's 0.8 of a second off the fastest mark. But moving into the lead. Polite applause by this crowd on hand at the finish. They should get raucous as the day moves along. The Oompa bands move in and a little bit of beer is consumed. Second of 3 German sleds now to go. The newcomer to the German program, Thomas Flörschütz out of Oberhof. Mirko Petzold on the brakes. And we see his results this year really came storming out of the gate. That silver medal in Park City was his first ever World Cup medal. Didn't do too well in Italy. 4.98 start, better than the Swiss. Now, Karl Angerer was a German pilot for the first half of the season and was bumped from the squad for the second half. Too bad here in Königssee, because this is a track where Angerer would have fared well. You see a little steering correction there by Florschütz. And a resulting bump. Now approaching the Kreisel. Germany number 2. And a little later on, Germany number 3, Matthias Hafner, who will challenge for a medal here. Can Florschütz stay in second place here as he approaches the finish? Germany number 2 through with a time of 5.38, a quarter of a second off the pace, tied for second here in the early going with Swiss number 1. So again, a warm welcome to Bavaria, Königssee Berchtesgaden. A look at the start of Germany number 2. They had some trouble near the top. We are just getting started here with our live coverage around the world online, and pleased you can be joining us. Here is Latvia number 1. Jānis Minins is riding sky high here in Europe. Dreesken's on the brakes. Minins not with the phenomenal two-man results, although he's had some good showings, especially in Italy with the 2 sixth-place finishes, but this man has piloted the 4-man bobsled to 2 consecutive victories, his first 2 ever. Loading into the sled, 5:05 the start. The snow falling lightly but steadily here. Bobsledding, a sport of precision. Loading into the sled, handling the corners, trying to stay right down the center of the track, building up speed to approach the next curve. About 2/3 of the tracks have these Kreisels, but only Königssee has the full 360 loop-to-loop turn. That's Sandis Prusis on the left, a former World Cup champion, watching and giving the thumbs up as we now have 3 sleds tied. This is going to be a great race, at least for the silver medal. 3 sleds out of 4 are tied to the 100th of a second, all of them 24 hundredths behind Andre Lange of Germany. Patrice Serville, another athlete, veteran, enjoying one of his finest seasons. The fireman from Monte Carlo really started things off at the end of last year here in Königssee with a top 10 finish in 8th place, and you see his results, especially in Cesana, 7th place when he was in the top 5 after the first run. Also, last week in San Moritz, a great first heat. Now, the brakeman there pulled the runners briefly out of the grooves at the start. We'll see how that reflects a 5:05. Sebastian Gattuso, the great track athlete from Monaco, the summer Olympian, little stutter at the top. One of the athletes told me during the week how they love the ice conditions here in Königssee. I was inspecting the ice today, and frankly, it doesn't gleam. It doesn't look as hard as you might see in, say, Calgary or Cortina. It almost appears a little slushy, but obviously that's forgiving for a bobsled pilot, if not fast. Monaco number 1, 5th sled down. Will they move into a big tie here? 50.31, they're in second place. So Patrice Serville, with coach Bruno Manjon looking on, is ahead of the Latvians, the Swiss, and Germany number 2. Now we have speed clocks at various points along the track. It gives you, especially during the first run, an indication of which sleds are doing fast. Generally in run number 1 in the speed should be number 1 at the bottom. Not as much the case in the second heat. So they're sweeping the track, a little bit of a break and a chance to recap things from yesterday. Germany, sled number 2, Kathleen Martini, Janine Tischer, they built up a big lead in the first run, and they held on to win A rare victory for Martini. She's always steady, but rarely on the top of the podium. And it was a 1-2-3 Germany finish, the first FIBT sweep since the men's skeleton event a year and a half ago in Lake Placid when the United States took the top 3 medals. So now Russia number 1, waiting patiently. Look at that brakeman bobbing his head. He's getting used to the ride already during the headshots. Zubkov, always steady. Took half of last year off, but has come back and had that 2-man victory in Cesana. Also has a 4-man win this year on the Lake Placid, New York track. Tracks scattered around the world, but 4 bobsled luge tracks are stationed right here in Germany. One of many reasons why the German program is so strong. The Carbon-Tech sled new to the Russians this year. They should be second only to the Germans here in the first 50 meters as the snow continues to fall. No! 5.14 start. So I stand corrected. Zubkov usually puts out a very fast first 50 meters, but he has the slowest time at the top. Clean exit, letting the sled run. Runner tips straight, but the sled wavering. 111.2. Still having trouble keeping the line he wants, but not a bad exit. He lost all his time at the top, seemingly without any major mistake, just the slow start. And on the short track, despite the great speed down here, he'll be lucky to be in that group in the top 2, and he's not even close. 43 hundredths off, so the best speed at the bottom, but the worst speed at the top. And that tells you something about the sport of bobsleigh, especially on a shorter track. Last week in San Moritz, some of these sleds could get away with a slower start and have all of that track to try to make up for time. So the slow times at the top, and as I mentioned during the run, the snow probably played no small part in that.
Let's go, Steven. Big hit.
USA number 1. Holcomb has been falling from grace. As those standings there reflect, I spoke to him right before the race and asked him how he was doing, and he muttered a hanging in there. And a 5:09 start, better than the Russians in the snow, but with Holcomb and Tomasevich, generally in the first half of the season, the starts were much faster, competitive with the best in the world. Holcomb out of Park City, Utah, Tomasevich from Shelby, Nebraska. Holcomb has been trying to rehab a groin injury for the past 3 weeks, injured during training in Italy. And they are not looking strong time-wise as they make their way down. Again, no major mistakes, but with the snow falling, you will see slower and slower times with the exception of maybe Luters and a few others. And all Brian Scheimer can do is wince. A little later on, John Morgan will be joining us for some of the call of the first run, and fellow American push athletes, Brock Kreitzberg and TJ Burns, will be on hand for the second heat. First of 3 USA sleds down, Holcomb in 7th place out of 7. Wolfgang Stampfe. Wipplinger on the brakes. We'll check out their World Cup showing so far this season in 2-man. And what a great start they had. And their weakest result was in San Moritz last week. As is the case in Holcomb, is that the sign of a trend moving down, or was that just a one-race hiccup? 5:10. And as we said, it's just going to get slower and slower. It's not snowing that heavy, but any little bit of precipitation, especially snow, especially in a sport timed to the 100th of a second, and especially on a shorter track, that greatly affects the times. Through the Kreisel, the Austrians, proud tradition in bobsledding, with Olympic medals, World Cup overall titles, a little bang there, the lower labyrinth. Climbing up one of those curves slightly. Will he stay ahead of the Americans? So 8th place. And it is possible, with the exception of the next 2 sleds, that once we get to the second heat, every sled's finish number will be the same as their start number as the track deteriorates. You will see some play from the next 2 sleds, however. So now the Italians, Simone Bertazzo, Samuele Romanini, second in the World Cup standings. They've been very fast at the top of the track all season long. Bertazzo with his first ever victory a few weeks ago, and the first win for the Italians on any World Cup or World Championship track in 9 years. Best start we've seen, a 491. Can they break 5 here in the snow? A clean load and a 5 flat. Now, if all works perfectly with the slowing track conditions, Bertazzo can hope to maybe move into the top 3, into that group all tied for 3rd place. He really can't hope for much more. 1500s off here. So is the sled set up? Are the runners properly set up for these conditions? Holding steady and really driving well now. Bertazzo bringing the Italians back to the top of the World Cup, back to respectability. They have a great tradition like the Austrians in the sport. 6th place, 3300s off, but that's not bad considering what we've just seen from the Russians, from the Americans, from the Austrians. For Italy, number 1, to come down after them and move ahead of them is a bit of a positive sign as they had to run number 2. Serville has been the surprise so far. He had a nice start number, 5th off the hill, and he sits in 2nd place. 1 sled remaining now here in the top seed, and certainly one to contend with. Canada won. Lascelles Brown is on the brakes. They call him King, and Coach Tuffy Latour says King has been on fire all week long here. They had a track record, a start record last week in San Moritz, 497, 2nd best so far. Luters has won more Winter Olympic sport medals than any other Winter Olympian in their respective sports in Canada. Medaled twice here last year in both 2-man and 4-man. The last real shot here to move into the top 5. Several world championships, World Cup championships, more than anyone in the sport possibly. We'll have to do the math on that. Holding and maintaining at 1300s. He should be in 2nd place here at the bottom unless he makes some sort of slip. 119.3, Canada number 1, Luters and Brown 3rd place, 0.2 of a second off. A huge log jam between 2 and 7 right now. Luters has at least kept himself close. He's kept himself in the medals. That's generally a sure thing here in Königssee. Pierre Luters with the Visa sleds. Visa, a long-time sponsor. Maybe been with the Canadian program longer than any major sponsor has been with any team here. Zubkov had the best speeds down at this point, despite the fact they were very slow at the top. Every 5 sleds, a little bit of cleanup on the track. It's only fair. A lot of excitement yesterday in the women's skeleton race. This is rookie American Annie O'Shea of Port Jefferson, New York. This was out of Kreisel. Several athletes banged at this spot, but O'Shea, with the shock of the impact, could not hang on to the sled. She could hang on to her dignity, though, and give us a smile. And towards the end of that race, well, one American had a very bumpy day. Another one had yet another successful day. Katie Eulander, defending World Cup champion, won her 4th race of the season and her 3rd in a row. So she joins Sandra Kiriasis as the only 4-time winner on the FIBT this season. And now the 2-man competition continues. Swiss number 2, Daniel Schmidt. .508 at the start. So far this season, Schmidt has had as strong as a 9th place finish. That was his best, and he did it twice in Lake Placid and in San Moritz. The Swiss have a great brakeman over the years, Olympic champion Beat Hefty, who has been learning how to drive and has been doing very successfully on the Europa Cup circuit, and either Schmidt or Martin Gallagher may lose their spot very soon, because Hefty is one to watch as the Swiss make their moves towards the 2010 Olympics. 7th place, 2600s back, and though you see a 7 there, this man is only 600ths out of 3rd and only 200ths out of a 3-way tie for 4th place. So things are very tight amongst all of the top 7 right now. All of them, however, quite a bit behind Lange and the Germans. The Kreisel, really a fun spot to watch a race, and spectators gather here in the middle where they can do that little turn around in their feet and watch with this, and great speed by Schmidt. Next up, Czech Republic number 1, Danilovic Gamola. 12th in the World Cup standings for the 2007 European champion. 5:08 start. Slowest start we've seen so far is a 5:14 by the Russians, surprisingly. And now the point I was making earlier, well, you know, the snow's actually, I'm going to change that point. The snow's let up a little. None of these next sleds should contend for the top 3, but it may not be the start number, finish number equaling each other. There was that period, I mean, Zubkov, it was just unbelievable with that slow start. So you see a little bit of rain on our camera lenses as they slide from the snow to the rain down here at the bottom of wintry mix at the bottom. 5:51, 9th best, moving ahead of Russia, USA, and Austria. So look at the S combination near the top. Driving with a rope and pulley system, as the athletes have to know what's coming up. They imagine the course, they walk the course. They say that a pilot could actually do this with his eyes closed. It wouldn't be the cleanest ride, but they know the tracks. Canada number 2, Lyndon Rush out of Humboldt, Saskatchewan. Finished 8th in Lake Placid. That was his best showing. On the brakes, a veteran, Chris Libyan from Kelowna, British Columbia, 30-year-old engineer. Rush has been competing with different brakemen all season long, as has Pierre Luders, and some mistakes up here at the top. Third best at this point. So sweeping the track and the change of the weather, and this has been a situation, I'm going to talk about this after this sled, all season long. 117.6 kilometers an hour, already a half smile from Tuffy Latour, the coach, but they do drop down to 10th place when all is said and done. Every stop we've had this year in the World Cup has been some sort of extreme weather. Cold in Calgary, heavy snow in Park City, snow again in Lake Placid, New York. We've had warm weather in Italy, and now this crazy stuff, the wintry mix in Königssee, and frankly, it makes a race unpredictable, but kind of fun. Netherlands, number 1, Van Kokke and Jansma. In speaking with that man in the middle, Tom Delhunty, the coach of the Dutch program, just before the race, he told me, if we can't do it here, we never will. That's Delhunty's quote. This team is fast at the start. The track appears to be getting a little faster for them now. It will boil down to the driving. On the Zinger sled, snow falls. They took their time at the start. And they have a 5:94, so that's excellent. They've been fast all year round, challenging the Germans, the Russians, and the Canadians at the top. They lost their time usually on the way down the track. Will Tom Delhunty be right? If we can't do it here, we never will. Here come the Dutch, already a little bit of a problem there, a little hiccup, but they're straight in the straightaway, and they have a great speed. Through the Kreisel, 600ths up at the last split. Now they fall back 100th. They should stay in the top 5. Looking good down here at the bottom portion. Delhunty is watching and cheering on. Here come the Dutch. And they are in second place. Only 800ths back. We have a fun and interesting top 3 right now with the Dutch and with Monaco. Let's listen to them down here. Great stuff. Now keep in mind, the Dutch and the Monegasque also were in the top 5 last week in the 2-man in San Moritz after the first run. They fell back. So nothing is settled yet here, but brief celebration for them down at the bottom. Second place for Netherlands, number 1. Snow falls. Italy, like the Dutch, just taking their time. No one's sure yet what the proper strategy is. The Canadians hurried up, and they were fast at the top. The Dutch took their time. They were fast at the top. This will be a slow start, only because Tosini's sled is generally always rather slow here at the beginning, and a 5:11 is indicative of that. This is the 15th out of 29. Two sleds, or 2 tracks rather, in Italy. Tosini's specialty is on the Cortina track, while his teammate Bertazzo seems to master the newer track in Cesana. You'll see these sleds, not as much as skeleton, but bobsled, very rarely is anyone perfectly down the center of the track from top to bottom here in Königssee. It's just a question of minimizing the taps and using the taps actually to your advantage. 9th best now. So 15 sleds have gone down the hill. The bottom 3, Zubkov, Holcomb, and Stampfer, have all won World Cup 2 medals this season. In fact, 2 of them have won World Cup races. So this is quite the role reversal right now with the Dutch and the Monaco sled in the 2nd and 3rd positions, the Russians and the Americans in the 2nd to last and 3rd to last positions. Unpredictability makes for a lot of fun for we commentators and for the fans, but quite a lot of confusion for the coaches. Fabrizio Tosini, a veteran pilot. He's been down this track many, many times, second only to Pierre Lueders and the Germans, of course, who train here. And there are the Dutch still in the foreground, all smiles. Well, we've seen a couple of sleds make their way into the top 3 from back in the pack, and this is another who very well could. We've got a little bit of a track hold as they sweep, and that's even more luck for the Germans. Matthias Hafner from Altenburg is getting ready for the Weltmeisterschaft in the World Championships, the biggest event of the season. That begins in 2 weeks in far eastern Germany. An exciting track for both bobsledding and skeleton, and should yield some fun action. And 5 world champions, men's skeleton, women's skeleton, and of course, all of the bobsled disciplines. So Matthias Hefner, Alex Mann. This is Germany number 3. Hefner finished second in this World Cup race last year. And with all of this late action, he could very well move into the number 2 spot. And who can give us insight on that? None other than my longtime partner, John Morgan. John, once again, we've seen crazy stuff.
The weather has definitely affected the sport. Look at this, Hofter. 17 to 15. If he exits this Kreisel with, look at the speed, huge speed. If he exited in single digits, he could be the leader at the bottom. +5, I predict now this is going to be the leader. This guy knows the track. Big advantage. It stopped snowing, a little bit of rain, huge speed there, best speed. This is going to be the leader.
Unbelievable. And he crosses in first place by 0.08 of a second. Germany holds down the top 2 spots, followed by the Dutch and Monaco. And it's the exact opposite of what we were thinking 10 minutes ago when the snow was falling.
But the snow stopped. You know, when Zubkov came down in the 6th position, they swept the track. 5 sleds, swept the track. Zubkov came down, snowstorm. He had the worst start. He should have had one of the better starts. He came down, posted a bad time. He's way back. And then you turn around and you got Holcomb following him. Look at the speed on the bottom part of the track. This is what the guy does best, as good as anybody.
And Zubkov still with the second best speed. He lost it all at the top.
Zubkov is going to move up in the second run, 4 or 5 places. Maybe he still have a chance for a medal. Zubkov is just shaking his head up there. Bad luck, bad draw. But hey, here's another guy, Martin Gallagher. Good driver.
His better results have been in 4-man, including that silver medal, the breakout performance 2 weeks ago in Cesana.
You couldn't even see Zubkov on the camera position there when he came down. Same with Holcomb. Both of those guys. But, you know, Zubkov recovered for best speed at the bottom. Holcomb didn't. Holcomb not driving the same lines as Zubkov, but what a race. I sort of like shaking it up. Bobsledding can be a prediction.
And look at this split going on, 1100s up. Yeah, no, I was just saying, it makes it unpredictable and confusing for the coaches, but a lot of fun.
Look at this.
A lot of fun for the fans and the commentators.
Wow. This is, you know, I like to see things equalized, and they try and do that in the sport, but the last few years we've seen dominant people. He's lost time back, doesn't have the speed. This is still going to be a top 3, top 4.
So the Dutch started the trend when they moved into second place, but now the sleds are following suit around the finish, +4 place. But look at that logjam, 23, 25.
28, 32. I tell you, it is unbelievable to see Zubkov and Holcomb back at 15th, 16th place.
I was saying the role reversal. The Dutch and the Monaco sleds in the top 5. The Russians, not just Zubkov and Holcomb, but Stomper also. They've all won World Cup medals.
Yeah, but, you know, we're talking right now that Zubkov and Holcomb might not make the second run.
That's right.
There's a good chance of them not making in the second run. And if, you know, again, you know, no excuses. But look, we can see in here now. We couldn't see in there when Zubkov came down and Holcomb came down. This guy, he could move up.
Jürgen Lowacker, Austria number 2. His teammate Stomper just had a disaster. But Lowacker really has just had a poor season in 2-man. 21st, didn't even make the second run last week in San Moritz, then came back, had a great race in the 4-man.
Well, I'm saying now, if he moves ahead of Holcomb and Zubkov, neither one of those guys will make the final run.
Zubkov with the slowest start time, John, of 5.14.
If I'm the Russians, I'm putting a protest in, 100 euros.
It's weather.
Yeah, but they could, you know, but it's not, you know, it's unfair. It's supposed to be a fair competition. They probably won't listen to him, but he's got a legitimate beef. He's one of the best starting teams in the world. He's a World Cup victory a couple of events ago, and the weather here just ate him alive. There's no way he should be in 17th, last place.
Second to last, only Stomper of Austria. So here comes the other Austrian, Jürgen Lowacker, Austria 2. Handling the lower labyrinth at 118.5. Not a day to remember for the Austrian bobsled program. 0.8 of a second off of the pace. Slower than everyone.
Well, we got a race within a race. Okay, we've got this wonderful leaderboard, Lange. You got the Hopner, Lange, the Dutch in third.
The Monegasque.
Monegasque in 5th. I mean, it's pretty unbelievable. The leaderboard is full of people you don't expect. Look at the line here. Good lines by Loacker. And down in this S snake, you got to bump there. That's natural to bump there. That's not. The question is how hard you bump. Now, another American. Now, here's an American who can make a statement.
Well, Kahn started late last week in San Moritz with Langton, and they moved their way up into the top 3 in run number 1. Langton, the rookie out of Melrose, Massachusetts. Kahn has just been praising this guy, John. As you see, the fast start, not the fastest, but not a bad start. He praises his work ethic, his attitude, and his talents.
Well, he's 3-4 weeks on the tour now in Europe, and that's when the rookies in bobsledding really start to feel how the food, the lifestyle in Europe affects their training habits. And it really is a situation. Look at Kahn. I just saw a green time there.
10-8, so he lost 200s, but still had the fastest speed up
big
here.
Speed up there, 1:10.8's good speed. Now, on the bottom part of the track, this is tricky. He's already lost a lot back, so obviously he made a mistake up there in the straightaway that we didn't see. But, hey, top 10 here would be great.
He was second after the first run last
clicks.
week.
That's not a good sign there. 120 is the number you want to have there. Top 10, 11th.
11th. Well, he will make run number 2. Brian Scheimer, his mentor and teammate at the Olympics when they won a bronze medal, he's pleased at the top. And if nothing else, Kahn for the second week in a row is the fastest American sled. 2 out of 3 have gone.
Well, he must have made a mistake up top. He had green numbers on the exit of the S's. We didn't see the straightaway, but he went from green to red quickly in the exit of Kreisel. But he'll make a second run. The problem is he just pushed his teammate into a dangerous position. Steve Holcomb not making a second run.
Right now, Holcomb sits in 17th, Zubkov in 16th, and we still have
8 sleds to go.
8 sleds, yeah. And here, the next 2 Russian sleds, both great 4-man sleds, none better than this man last year, but both struggling this year in 2-man.
Yeah, this is ranked 21st. This is one of the biggest mysteries on the tour. Good equipment, good start times. You know, he's been out on the tour for about most of this decade, and won the World Cup title in 4-man, and he's ranked 21st in 2-man. And here comes the snow again. And why is he waiting? I don't understand. The Canadians are the smartest team.
Well, the Dutch waited, and they were fast, but they're always fast at the start.
Whoop, there's a wavering here, but watch the start time, how far off he is here. I don't know why they would wait.
Not bad.
5:05, but the Canadians Lueders always goes fast, but both Canadian sleds, Lyndon Rush and Lueders, he went back to the top. They could barely get the graphic in to say who they were, and they were going. And I think that's good coaching.
600s at the last split, 400s now, and if it's like the Americans who just came down, they'll be about 1/10 of a second back at the next speed clock.
-7. Next clock, Tim, I guess +12 minimum. 17. Now he's following back. Now the question is he going to fall back behind Zubkov? Zubkov's asking him to drive into the wall or something. Zubkov's got a chance. Popov won't move up too much.
Doing some steering down there.
No speed. He's going to fall back. He's going to be 16th or 17th place. 17th.
17th, a half a second off the pace, but ahead of Holcomb and the Americans.
There, so Holcomb by 200ths, 300ths.
I'm predicting right now Pierre Lueders is going to win a medal. He's in 6th place right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. So there's another guy bumped Steve Holcomb to not making the run, but Zubkov, he looks a little bit better here because the next sled's coming up. There's 3 or 4 sleds here that shouldn't challenge, but you never know. Look at the speed here in the Kreisel. Look at the wavering up and down. There's 3 pressure points here. His sled's got to climb here for the 3rd pressure point. It is really difficult to negotiate around this Kreisel. Here in Altenburg are the 2 most difficult Kreisels that exist. Next week we'll see one in Winterberg. There's one in Calgary, one in Innsbruck. Those are kinderbonds compared to this.
Well, tomorrow we've got 2 more races. Later today, men's skeleton, but it's the 4-man bobsled event from Königssee, and those were the Russians.
Popov in the first run last year, and he still finished.
We've also got a team competition, skeleton, women's bobsledding, and men's bobsledding, all competing together as teammates. It should be a lot of fun. We hope you'll stick around our live coverage all weekend, all season, from around the world. So they're sweeping the track here. Tim Singer being joined by John Morgan. In our 20th year together calling bobsledding, the snow continues to fall. It's our 20th year, John, but I've never seen so much unpredictability from race to race as we've seen this year.
Every single race, we've had a weather factor, 25 below in Calgary, big snowstorms in Park City, huge snowstorm with 50-mile-an-hour winds in Lake Placid in the four-man. We went into Cortina, where there was one of the races were canceled because of wet snow. Cesana, there was all sorts of timing and timing problems, so they had to give the Italians a rerun. They ended up winning. Then we went to St. Moritz. Big snow, winds last week in the four-man competition. Now we're here with a threatening Mother Nature again. Look at that.
Doing all sorts of steering, and he will just continue to bleed time the rest of the way.
Now, the other sleds have all had green times at the exit of the S's. I don't know if this guy will.
Abramovich pilots Russia number 3 and has had some great results this season in four-man.
No, he's way back. So here's a good sign for Holcomb. Holcomb's got to pray for like 4 more sleds to fall to have a chance here. And he should. The exit here should be 18. Well, that's still Holcomb needs this guy to have about 117.5, 118 speed. Look at your left side of your screen. 118.9. That's good speed. That's not a good sign for the U.S.
So the Zinger sled opening up here down at the bottom in 20th place. So he falls behind. Only ahead of Jürgen Lowacker, who will pack his sled.
Look at this. Didn't stop the sled. Oh, it's dangerous. That's where they got that big mat there. And we've seen some accidents down here. But he falls. That's normal placing for him. So now we're seeing some normal results. And I tell you, the mistake he made here, there's a good sigh of relief from the American team. Look at this. Look, out of the start grooves, starts playing with it, stayed away from the wall. That's worth a lot of time at the bottom of the track. Look at this. That's why they got a brakeman. Those little grooves there. He doesn't hit that. It's dangerous into those pads.
We've seen some tracks where the skeleton athletes all go into the padding. Now Romania number 1, the 25-year-old teacher, Nicolae Estrata, finished 26th and last in last year's World Cup race in Königssee.
Difficult to drive. He's driving a Podar sled, and he's ranked number 27th in the world last year.
Shaky, slow load by the brakeman, but a 5:05 respectable start.
Well, when you have a chance to start your sled, you got a chance for fast at the bottom, and he's looking at -5. So he didn't have that problem that the Russians did at the start, and if any kind of luck here, and there's a bang, he's down to 3. This is still a decent time. But
it's from this split to the next where we see all of the time being lost.
It looks like he's almost slowed down the acceleration point. So plus 20 here at the next clock, 31.16. He'll bleed more time at the bottom. Key speed. Left side of your screen as they go through the echo curve, 4.5 G's of force, 118, 117.5. This is a 21st place sled right here.
So crossing the finish line, the Romanians, John, how tough is it psychologically to come to track each week, train all week, have a plan, have confidence, go down for one run, and then pack up and go home?
Well, it's not pleasant, and these guys are out here. They earn their points. He's 21st. He'll probably finish 24th to 25th, but I give these guys a lot of credit. They have decent starts. Somehow, someone's got to, be nice and give them a nice sled, because what they're driving now is a second slower than everybody else's piece of equipment.
So the snow continues to fall. The British fans are on hand here. They're getting excited for the skeleton later today, of course, where they shine in men's skeleton. But we still have 2 British sleds here in the 2-man. But here are the Latvians. Latvia number 2, Maskalins, the driver.
Well, this athlete's got some talent. Look at the brakeman, left to right, left to right. They tell everybody to lock that head on your shoulders. Don't let that movement go left to right. Let the movement go forward. It's a forward sport. It's not a side-to-side sport. So that's a technical thing they're going to have to work on. But
from 1/100th up to 1/100th back for the Latvians.
Well, this is, you can tell, these guys shouldn't have this type of time here at this point of the track. That tells you how hard it was snowing
conditions were for the
first
sleds.
6 or 7 sleds. And no one got hurt more than Zubkov and Holcomb, but it looks like Zubkov got a good chance of making Zubkov's in. This sled goes down. Holcomb looks like he'll be in for the final 20. 118 kilometers is the speed, 117.3. This is another 21st, 22nd place sled. So again, this is about speed on the bottom. And so Holcomb, I think, is now locked into
Well, 4 sleds remain, 5 sleds remain, including Holcomb's teammate, John Napier.
I take that back.
6
right.
sleds.
6 sleds. I take that back. So there is 6. Now, if you look, Cerise, Napier should beat Holcomb. Martin Wright shouldn't. Lee Johnson, I don't know. Kupchak sits in the sled. The Bulgarian, yeah, well, there's a chance here. 2 sleds could knock out, 2 more sleds to beat him. There's a chance. I would say John Napier's got a chance.
Let's look at Herr Fendt, Josef Fendt, the president of the International Luge Federation, based right here in Berchtesgaden.
And the guy in the gray is the old president and CEO of the German Bobsled and Skeleton Luge Federation, Gunter Scheidlinger.
Now the French, and I talked about Holcomb falling from grace. How about the French, the once proud French program?
Well, they had Bruno Mangin and the other French pilot that were good 2000, 2001, and then Bruno retired. Now they're building the program back. Cerise here, he was out on the North America tour. We saw him in Calgary, Park City.
Mangin.
Bruno Thomas, someone just reminded me, was the other Swiss or other French pilot who won a World Cup medals in La Planche.
Eric Allard.
Eric Allard, of course, way back. Eric Allard won.
I got you on
yes, you did. Eric Allard won a World Championship 2-man medal in Winterberg in 1995. And but the French program, La Planche, we haven't seen it on the World Cup circuit. And they got a couple guys in the Europa Cup. And this is a lot of wavering in the Kreisel. You see that sled going up and down. That's friction. And there's 3 pressure points. And here's another sled to the bottom that gives Stevie Holcomb and Kurt Tomasevich a chance to compete in the second run. And it's almost looking slow. 117.3. There's the finish. And through and down as...
Is it possible that they're still sweeping after every 5 sleds, but are they doing it with a little less enthusiasm now with these sleds late in the pack?
Well, Tim, I don't know how to answer that. It's supposed to be fair, but after Patrick Serville came down the track, the first 5 sleds, then they had a pause to sweep. And I think that pause really hurt Alexander Zubkov in the first 50 meters. I think it hurt Holcomb, and I think it hurt Stamford, because all 3 of those guys really suffered. The only guy that didn't do bad is Bertazzo, but he didn't do that great. He's in 13th place.
Right.
So you have 4 guys who have all won medals. Best they've got from the 6th, 7th, and 8th, 9th position is 13th place.
USA 3 is driven by 21-year-old John Napier, now makes his home in Lake Placid, New York. 31-year-old Chuck Barkley, the real estate broker from California, big guy on the brakes. And a nice start, 5:04, fastest of the 3 American sleds.
Well, Chuck is he's a pretty impressive athlete, track and field background. Napier, we've seen Napier grow. 21 years old, youngest guy in the competition. And no doubt about his driving skills. His aspect is getting experience and getting a little stronger.
How old was he when he first drove a bobsled?
8 years old. I saw him at 12 years old driving off the old half mile with his father on the brakes. And this guy has got some passion for the sport. And here's a guy who's probably going to knock back his teammate, Steve Holcomb, into 19th place.
Napier with 2 8th-place finishes this year in 4-man bobsledding with the big American crew behind him. And he reaches the finish in 19th place.
So he's now fighting. He's only 400ths behind Steve Holcomb. That tells you how, in a normal day, Steve Holcomb would be 40 hundredths ahead of John Napier on this track. And that'll tell you how much of a disadvantage. You move Holcomb 40 hundredths up, Holcomb is up into the 3rd or 4th position.
So he can just shrug his shoulders and show that Orta sponsorship logo on his shoulder. Lake Placid.
Olympic Authority, yes, sponsor John Napier, as they should. Look at the lines. Here's the standings. Not a bad line for Napier on the bottom part of the track, which, he's probably only got 20 trips down this track in his career. But take a look at that face. You're probably going to be seeing a lot of him in the next decade in U.S. bobsled.
Along with big Chuck Berkeley. Well, this was the situation last year. Andre Lange in the 2-man race. It was the World Cup finale.
Yeah, him and that beast on the back of the sled, Kevin Kuska. Unbelievable start times. FES Berlin at the bottom. Lange, another day at the office, greets the Bavarian crowd, although he's not from Bavaria.
And he finished 8th in the 4-man race in Königssee, which was his lowest showing in a couple of years. So the snow continues to fall. John, we've been around the world already. Now we close the season in Germany. And have you ever seen crowds in this sport as you see here in Deutschland?
Well, it's not only is it crowds that come to the event, but these are crowds that know the sport. You know, and again, I meant that the last time I was on with you, Tim, I talked about if you go to a hockey game at the Montreal Forum, every single person, the 19,000 people in the seats, all know hockey, are passionate for the sport, and that's what you feel like when you come to these venues. These people aren't just coming here as a spectator, they're coming here because they really love the sport.
Martin Wright, 33-year-old from Northampton, member of the Royal Marines, actually makes his home now in Calgary, training much more on that Calgary track. He's got John Julian Hughes on the brakes.
Hughes is a good-looking athlete, boy. He's got some physique to him, and, in his defense, takes 2 to start the sled. 5:05's not bad. Wright, he's been getting the experience on the tracks. You know, it's about time for him to start posting some results.
Well, last week was a landmark for British bobsleigh this season. Wright finished 20th. It marked the first time this season that a British 2-man sled made it into the second run.
Well, there's an equipment factor, there's runners, there's understanding, there's the start time. They're building slowly, you know. Malcolm Lloyd, Gomer is, very positive about the future for British bobsled. He thinks he's got some good athletes in. He's got some good people on the Europa Cup Tour, he says. Nice speed in the finish, 118 clicks. That's good speed. This isn't too bad for Martin Wright. He might make the last 20.
He
21
is in
does
21st place. So Holcomb is in.
Now it's a question whether or not Stamford gets in.
And Napier. So 2 sleds remain.
I predict that Stamford will, as he should. I mean, Stamford missed the cut last week at 4-man in St. Moritz. Not good for Austrian bobsledding.
He started off the season with 2 bronze medals.
Yeah, and so it's, slump. But I tell you what, Mother Nature has been the most equal element of the playing field this year. I've seen some things happen this year 4 or 5 times that I haven't seen in a decade in the sport.
Well, the British flag continues to wave from one UK sled to another. The veteran Lee Johnston, John Jackson on the brakes. Jackson, 30-year-old father of 3, who John says he trains 2 times a day, 5 days a week, and eats as much as he can. How would you like to do that? To be able to eat as much as you could.
I mean, this is Monty Python's Flying Circus. This is, the comic on the tour, and you can't have a real normal conversation with Lee, but you can respect his abilities to drive a sled. In the 4-man, he's proven it with the 5th place last year in St. Moritz on that long track. But on these short tracks, when you have the 26th ranked start time, it is really difficult to break into the top 20 at the bottom part of the track. And if you gave him Andre Lange's sled right now with that 26 start time, he probably wouldn't break into the top 20. But the sport, look how smooth the lines are. But as soon as I said that,
jinxed him. I spoke with Johnson before the race. He's been suffering from a bad back. In fact, he missed 2 races this season, though he said he is feeling better every day. Won't be feeling good with this result, though.
He was in the truck with us yesterday talking about things, and the comic relief from the guy is just. You want to spend a few minutes of every day on the bobsled tour with Lee Johnson exchanging vibes, because he does lift your spirits. There's Gomer. Oh, we got to pack the sleds up, get them out of here, get the 4-man ready.
Well, only the French trail Lee Johnston right now, and Johnston tied for the slowest start of the first heat with guess who? Alexander Zubkov of Russia. Slowest start.
I would think, if they could find out at the start, find out with our top guy at the start to see if a protest has been filed, I would believe the Russians would throw a protest in there, because that is not fair. And they do try and run these races fair and equal. They've tried to do it with the equipment. They've tried to standardize the equipment, and it's been very difficult. But here's Poland.
Kupchik is not sitting in the sled. He's been nursing an Achilles problem, missed most of the season. The first 2 races he sat in the sled at the start. He's giving it a little limp here.
Yeah, he's trying, and boy, there's a strange medical evaluation. They had him totally misdiagnosed last year, and then they brought him to another specialist about in November, and all of a sudden he was in an operation on his Achilles for a whole different, procedure than they thought was the problem last year. So he had no time to train. 28 start. That's all related to the start time. Good drivers. Too bad, too. These guys were creeping into the top 10 a couple years ago. And good driver, great track and field athletes they pull out of Poland. But if you can't start the sled on one of the shortest tracks on tour, it's pretty difficult to have any chance at the bottom.
29 sleds in the field. It's the largest two-man field this season. And this is sled number 28, 117.5 kilometers an hour through the finish curves with a time of 51.47, 28 out of 28. Just one short of the maximum number of sleds. Our FIBT representative, Don, down in the truck, just informed me 30 you can have, 29 are in hand here.
It's nice to get out of the truck, come up here and talk to you,
It's great
Tim.
to have you here. It gives my voice a break.
Couple more guys that we have switching positions here today. And I just got the notice from the crew that they're very happy that I'm up here too. Yeah, so I really appreciate that.
I don't doubt that. So one sled remains here. These are the Bulgarians. The debut this season for Vasilev, the driver. He is the veteran, the senior driver actually on the circuit at 39 years old, but probably one of the least experienced in the World Cup. In fact, only once in his career has he ever even made it into run number 2.
Well, he was in the World Championships in 2003 in Lake Placid, made the final sleds. First one down in the final heat. He had a horrific crash in the labyrinths. He told me top of the track he's nursing a hamstring problem all year, and he's been on the Europa Cup, and here's going to be the worst start time probably of the day.
5:50. I'm predicting 5. Wow, 5:12, faster than Zubkov.
Yeah. Driving a borrowed sled. When he had the sled at the top of the track, I said, "Look at this beautiful paint job." I said, "Great." He said, "I did it." Oh, look at that. And he said he did it. Then he lied to me. He said, "No, it's a borrowed sled, rented sled from the region here." And I said, "Boy, you have to put a sticker on there, the Viessmann sticker." And
this could be interesting here, doing some looping.
But if you see the sled up close, maybe they can get us a close-up. It's a fantastic paint job, and that was late. That had nothing to do with a paint job, that spot right there. Into the finish, challenge. Well, Wolfgang Stampfler, you will go to the second run. So will Steve Holcomb, 29th out of 29.
Well, no protests have been filed, at least as of yet, for this heat, but it was a crazy heat. And John, before we check out these standings, how do you sum it all up?
I sum it up. I sort of like the action. I feel sorry for Zubkov. I feel sorry for Stampfler. I feel sorry for Holcomb and Bertazzo. Oh, look at that. Whoa, a little late. The guy's been down the track 200 times, so I'm pretty surprised at that. But I still like to see the leaderboard the way it is. Our guys in the TV truck are from Cinevideo Group from Hilversum. They're Dutch. They like the standings right now, Tim. And
well, we check out those
I just
standings.
hope it doesn't affect their work in the second run.
The Dutch in third, the Monegasque in fifth. Those two sleds were in the top 5 last week in San Moritz and fell back. Expect Luters to make a move, perhaps the other German as well, as we set up for a fun run number 2.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of moving in the second run. I predict Zubkov is going to spend a long day in the leaders box. Ironically, in St. Moritz last week, guess who was 16th and 17th place? It was Zubkov and Holcomb. Holcomb's dropped one. Now he's in 18th place. So 2 bad weeks. Bad European Tour for Steve Holcomb. John Napier makes the second run, so USA will have 3 sleds there. Here's the 5 sleds that don't make the second run.
Yeah,
all of these.
9 sleds.
9 sleds.
Right. So that's the situation here. John, thanks so much. Always great having you with us. Have
Tim's
fun
pleasure.
in run number 2 talking in my ear.
I got to go back down and make sure all those Dutch guys do their job in the second run.
We will be back at 11:45. That's about 43 minutes from now. TJ Burns and Brock Kreutzberg will join me for the call of the second heat as we look to crown a champion here at the World Cup of Königssee. Until then, thanks for joining us, and we will be back shortly here in Berchtesgaden, Königssee, Bavaria, Germany. So long.
Voller Platz. Eure Prognose, schafft es nochmal im zweiten Lauf? sich die anderen vom Leib zu halten, den Schweizer und den Monegassen?
Unbedingt Top 5, sowieso. Aber dritte, ja, wir schauen mal. Ich glaube ja, hier in Königssee für Edwin, das muss reichen.
Okay, der Edwin darf auch gewinnen. Wir haben die Flagge da und auch die Nationalhymne, also da gibt es kein Hindernis. Und ihr feuert ihn an und ich denke, ihr habt schon mal eine Fangemeinde dazu gewonnen. Also noch einmal für den Edwin, falls er uns hört da oben am Start, gib alles, Edwin! Herzlichen Dank. Ja, ich sage mal, das war für den Edwin von Kalker und der Tourismusdirektor Berchtesgaden Königssee steht jetzt neben mir. Was heißt, ich habe mich gar nicht neben ihm gestellt. Michi, schön, dass du da bist, das ist das Erste. Herzlich willkommen. Aber das kann ja gar nicht schaden, wenn die Holländer hier an der Bahn stark fahren. Dann kommen die auch im Sommer zu Besuch, oder?
Genau, wir tun alles, damit wir die Urlauber gewinnen hier für unsere Region. Und wenn es dann ein dritter Platz wird, dann ist das ein Urlaub zu haben.
Nein, wir sind ja jetzt hier. Wir lassen den besten gewinnen, weil es ein Holländer ist, ein Monegasse, ein Schweizer. Da soll es auch beim Recht sein. Wir haben ja auch schon Gäste, die ich gestern ganz besonders begrüßt habe aus Hamburg. Jedes Jahr landet er mit seinem Jet hier hinten auf der Wiese. Er landet in Salzburg, aber er kommt jedes Mal in Begleitung, das freut uns natürlich auch. Es kommen hier sehr viele jedes Jahr her zum Bob. Und ich denke mal, ich gebe jetzt wieder zurück ins Zielhaus zum Gerhard Willi Willmann, dass er ein bisschen, Willi, nicht den Holzmichel, den haben wir jetzt schon 5-mal gehört, ein bisschen fetzige Musik, die Zuschauer stehen drauf und die sind begeisterungsfähig. Hau rein in deinen Laptop. Weiß ich gar nicht, ob der Willi das schon über Lautsprecher gesagt hat, aber eine Information an Sie, liebe Gäste, verehrte Zuschauer. Um 12:05 Uhr beginnen wir mit dem entscheidenden zweiten Lauf für den Fissmann FFP Top-Wettkampf Zweier der Männer. 12:05 Uhr bitte ich doch pünktlich da zu sein und dann durchzuhalten bis zur Siegerung. Edwin von Kalker auf dem 3. Platz. Naja, und 2 Deutsche kommen. Also, wir sehen uns spätestens um 12:05 Uhr. Herzlichen Dank.